Today we have on the show Molly Schoneveld. She's the president of the Storied Group, which is a public relations agency, and they work with some really big clients. And if you guys have seen some of the celebrity clients in my portfolio, some of them came from Molly. And you're usually talking business a lot. I hear.
Yes.
Yes, and you coach people on business, talking about PR, branding, all that stuff. But today we're going to talk about your marriage to your husband, Dave.
We
or
are.
David.
He goes by Dave.
Dave, got it.
Yep.
Okay, so just to get to it, who is your husband and what does he do?
So my husband is Dave, and he does visual effects and video game development. So he's working for a startup right now.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you guys are not in the same industry.
We are not.
Do you prefer it that way?
I think so. I think he would say that he wished I knew a little bit more about gaming, or like that I would be a little more into it, which I'm not at all. So it gets a little hard for me to get excited about exactly what he's doing, but I try really hard to still listen and be excited. But I'm really glad he's not in PR.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys does he support you, like come to events with you sometimes?
Oh, yeah. He'll do anything that I ask him to do in that capacity. But I think sometimes with what I do, it's almost harder to have your partner there, because if you're working, then you also kind of feel like, oh, gosh, are they okay? Although Dave loves to talk to strangers, whereas I'm the girl standing in the corner. So he would be totally fine no matter where I took him. But, yeah, he's completely supportive.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take it back. How did you guys meet and when did you meet?
We were babies. As I just was joking with you, I was a child bride. Not really. But looking back at photos, I'm just like, oh my God, how did my parents even allow me to get married? I was 27, so I wasn't really that young. But we actually met at church, which is both of our parents' dreams. I mean, you never hear this story in LA, I feel, but we both moved here after college, didn't know each other. And I actually met his best friend at a wedding. And so he ended up getting my information, and then months later contacted me wanting to know which church I went to. And it was Bel Air Presbyterian, for those who want to know, who want to meet their spouse. And so Dave actually came to church with Matt. And it's funny because Matt introduced Dave to me, but right before I walked up, he whispered to Dave, hey, this girl has a really big crush on me. And so Dave thought for 2 years that I liked his friend.
Wait, what? Did you?
I mean, so when I first met Matt at the wedding, there was definitely like, kind of a spark, but Matt is a very charismatic guy. And so he's that way with everybody. But then I ended up getting Matt a job where I worked and kind of got to know him and realized, oh my God, we would never work in a relationship. And so I didn't feel that way about him. It was not like, oh my God, I have this massive crush on him or anything like that.
And are you guys still friends with Matt?
Oh, yeah. He was in our wedding.
Oh, okay.
And I just talked to him last week.
Okay. BFF Matt.
Yes, exactly.
Got it. And 27, I feel like it's young, but it's not. Well, now it feels young, like from where we are now, right?
Right.
So before you guys met, where were you? Like when you guys met, where were you in your life? Were you looking for a relationship?
I definitely was. And at that time, I felt so old because being from the South, everyone got married right after college to the people that they had dated in high school or college. And then, of course, got divorced soon after. But yeah, like I can remember being in my car at like 25 years old and being at a red light and literally like screaming like, God, where is he? And now it just seems so silly.
We've been there.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Yeah, but it's like I still feel 25 on the inside. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was definitely ready to meet somebody. And I luckily was working at a job that was not super crazy. So I was actually bored quite a bit of the time. And Dave and I always say that even though those jobs were not necessarily the best jobs in terms of our career or anything like that, it gave us the space to actually have time to get to know each other, because my job prior to that was working for a huge producer and I just did not have a life. So if we had met at any other time, I feel like I don't know that things would have gone the same way. And in fact, we did meet when I was working for that job, but it took 2 years for Dave to be like, why have we never hung out?
Yeah, timing is a real thing.
It is.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, so before you met, were you dating a lot?
I was definitely dating. I was never somebody that liked to date a lot of people at one time because generally for me, if I was doing that, it meant that I wasn't really into any of the people. It was just kind of,
Whatever.
something to do for fun. Yeah.
And then did you have any patterns? Like, did you go after a specific kind of guy?
Oh, yeah. Unavailable guys.
Okay. So
All the time. I mean, I always had, if I was dating a lot of people, there was always the one that I really wanted to go out with that was just not available for whatever. Not that they were married or something like that, unavailable, but just emotionally not available or just not ready for a relationship or did not want a relationship with me.
Okay. And then was there a point that you had decided, I don't want to go after the unavailable person anymore?
It wasn't a conscious decision. I don't know that I was mature enough at that stage in my life to really understand what that means. But I definitely know that when I met Dave, we were so quickly to commit to each other, and it was terrifying. And there was something in my gut that was like, don't run away from this, because I had run away from that when guys would come on, really strong. And, in fact, I had gone on a date the week prior to Dave asking for my number. And we had a wonderful time. And it was somebody that I worked with quite a bit. So we were on the phone a lot back in those days when you actually talked on the phone. And he took me to a premiere. It was so great. And that night he's like, I have to see you again. When can you get together? And I was like, every ounce of my being was just like, no, this isn't right. And then Dave did it the very next week. And trust me, guys, that's the only 2 times in my life where guys have acted like that. Usually they didn't want anything to do with me. It's not like every guy was falling all over me all the time. But when Dave did it, there was just something in my intuition that was like, this feels right. And so even though I was kind of terrified, I was just like, I need to just see where this goes.
Okay, so you went into it with curiosity?
I did.
And do you think there was a difference between Dave and the other guy? Was there an ounce of maybe desperation from the other guy that you picked up on? Or do you think it was just you intuitively knew maybe it wasn't a good
No,
fit?
I don't. And in fact, I'm still friends with that guy.
Okay.
Because I was very honest with him because I kind of had to be. We worked together and whatever. And I didn't want to just disregard the fact that we'd gone out and I had a great time. But I literally, from the moment that Dave and I had coffee, we each went home that night and told our parents that we'd met the one that we were going to marry. It was that intense of this is it for whatever reason. And I always tell my friends that I feel like we committed to each other before we really even knew each other. And somehow it worked out.
And how would you describe that feeling that you knew?
I think it felt like home. Because Dave and I would hang out because, his friend Matt worked, I got him a job working where I worked at Imagine Entertainment. And he was a PA. And so we all got to go to the premieres and stuff. And the year that I worked there, they won the Oscar for A Beautiful Mind. And so there was a lot, it was the cool place to work. And so we got to have a lot of big parties and things. And so Matt would bring Dave. And I can just remember, and I never even thought of Dave as a possibility at these events for whatever reason, which is weird because I feel like I was a little boy crazy and I always thought people were a possibility. So I don't know why I didn't walk away from those things with a crush on him. I just can remember, and we both have the same memory of this one party where I felt so just drawn to him and just felt like I could be myself, as opposed to feeling like I needed to, put on airs or impress someone.
Got it. And Dave, how would you describe him? What's his personality like?
Oh my gosh, he's wide open. He is super funny. His goal in life is to make me laugh still to this day. He definitely brings levity to every situation. And I don't mean necessarily silly, because people that he works with, he loves to make everybody laugh. And so I think sometimes people think he doesn't have a serious side and oh my God, how can you live with this person? But the thing is that he has a serious side. But he just, It's like when my stepdad passed away a year ago, it's like the person that I wanted to be by my side was him, because I knew that he would not only make me feel better, but also just bring some levity to what was happening. So he's just, he's everything to me.
Oh, well, it seems like it when I look at your Instagram photos. You guys are buddies, like travel buddies. Mm-hmm. And I just see ease and a true partnership.
It is that. I mean, I will tell you, it is not all sunshine and rainbows. We did separate for a very short amount of time when I was about 35. And I'd love to talk about that, because I do think people tend to look at my Instagram and they just think like, oh my God. And I will say, like, things are better than they've ever been now. But I think that, even in the most perfect situation, I think sometimes we can question, are we with the right person? Is this the person I want to be with forever? Because I think when you're making a decision at essentially 25, 26 years old, Dave's a little bit younger than me, which he loves to rub in my face. But, it's just, you kind of, I think, go into huge decisions without realizing like, oh, it is for the rest of my life, when you're saying those vows. And I think at that age, you don't really understand what that means. And so there was a time when I was just like, oh my God, like this is, I made this decision at 26. Is this still the best decision? And luckily, the answer that I came to was that yes, it is still the best decision. But Dave let me have that time to figure it out without any sort of, he wasn't necessarily angry. I know he was hurt and, and we had to kind of get through some of those things, but just giving me that kind of space that I needed, I think made us come out stronger.
So you said around 35,
Mm-hmm.
you're on, so that's almost like a 7-year, because I hear about the 7-year itch.
Yeah.
I hear that's a real thing.
I think it's real. I really do think that, because it was 7 years. And then suddenly it was just kind of like, I still loved him. And that was the thing. We went to therapy and my therapist literally would sit in a room with us and say, you guys adore each other. Like, he's like, I've never had a couple that comes in here and like is so seemingly happy with the other one, but yet there seems to be just something that, you feel you need to explore, whatever. And so anyway, yeah, even through that time, I think we were, and I say we barely were separated, because even though Dave actually did move out and got a house and everything for a very short amount of time, I was over there all the time.
Okay.
And like his friends would come over and they'd be like, what are you guys doing? This is ridiculous,
You just needed some space.
So, yeah.
And then during that time, were you going to therapy separately or so you're a therapist, or did you do any other personal growth to get into an alignment with yourself?
I definitely read books like A New Earth.
Yes. Love that book.
Love that book. And what's crazy about that book is that when Oprah had him on, Eckhart Tolle on her show at that time, I bought the book and it was years ago. And I tried to read it and I was like, what is this crap? I don't get it. And I'll tell you, years later, I picked it up and it was if he had written the book for me. So again, it's that timing thing.
Totally.
And just helped me kind of get back into like, I guess my own happiness or something.
Yeah. I love that book. That was one of the first personal growth books that really opened me up to thinking.
Yeah. And even like The Power of Now never did that, because I went back and kind of looked through that. I don't know what it is about A New Earth, but I've had other people say the same thing.
Yeah. Eckhart, he puts in a way, I just feel like that it's kind of just crumbles any stories that you have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Love him.
Me too.
Okay, so you guys were living apart for a short amount of time?
Yeah,
like
it was
a year?
like, no. It was like 3 months or something.
Oh, just 3 months? Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the moment or was there a specific moment where you had the clarity of, like, what am I doing? Like,
I think the moment he moved out.
Okay. Wow.
I think the moment and my therapist was very, he really wanted us to have the separation, because I think my therapist thought, and I guess to a big degree, I was sort of fantasizing life not being married anymore and what that would be. And like, oh, I'd have all this freedom and whatever. And then the second it happened, it was like, oh my God, what have I done? Right. And my therapist even wanted us to stay separated longer than we did.
Wow.
But we Dave was like, I want to come home. And I was like, I want you to come home.
Oh, so cute. Okay, so with Dave's personality, how would you say, for both of you, how would you say that you guys balance each other out?
I definitely ground him. And he definitely makes my life way more fun.
Got it. And okay, because you said that he's funny, he's light. Is he more extroverted and you're more introverted?
Yes.
Okay. With your job, you have to be the face of, you have to be face to face with a lot of clients and stuff. So that is just, I guess it's similar to me actually, because I'm also introverted, but you kind of just learn to do these things to
and I feel like
up.
One-on-one, I love like small groups of people and one-on-one interactions. It's not like I don't like people. I just, walking into like a party of people that I don't know is a little terrifying for me. Champagne helps. But yeah, I think with PR, you just kind of learn that it's part of the job and you just do it whether you like it or not.
And then with friends, do you guys have a shared friend circle?
We do. And I think this is something that we've talked about a lot lately is that we just wish we had a stronger community in LA now. So many of our friends have moved away. He still has good friends from before we were together, and we spend Thanksgiving with them most every year and see them on a pretty regular basis. And then I feel like we've definitely expanded like our couple friends. But then we also, I have single girlfriends that we hang out with. He has single guy friends that we see. So yeah, but I think that we, for the most part, see people together doing dinners and things. But I love to go on girl weekend trips and things like that. Like I've definitely not abandoned that part.
And was that always easy between you guys? Like, bye, I'm going to go to Napa for the weekend?
Yeah, and my mom has actually, I went to England by myself, and my mom was like, she was just so upset that I was going without Dave because that was not her marriage situation. My stepdad just never wanted her out of her sight or out of his sight. And that's fine. I think you have to choose what works for you as long as both of you are happy, right? But I've always valued my independence. I'm an only child of divorced parents. So I think that I spend a lot of time by myself. And so I need a lot of time by myself. So whether it's, going somewhere for a couple nights alone or with a group of friends, girlfriends, or whatever. Dave loves to be included, even if it's just the girls.
So cute.
Yeah, but I do take trips without him, and he's totally fine. He's very supportive of it.
That's great. And does he go off on guy trips?
He doesn't.
He doesn't. Okay. He sounds just like very simple and content.
Yeah, he's way more of a homebody than I am. Like, he kind of jokes that he would never leave the house if I wasn't planning things for us to do, but he enjoys, like, checking things off my bucket list.
Cute. But he's a homebody, but if he's in a group or with strangers, then he'll flood around the room.
He loves to socialize. He would prefer for us to entertain at home, I think, more than we do. We just don't have a huge space. But yeah, he loves to be around people, I think even more than I do.
And what are the things that you guys like to do together?
We love to try restaurants, which sounds so boring. And in fact, one year we decided his New Year's resolution that we were going to do interesting dates during the week. And it was something that I did on my Instagram, and then I'm terrible with consistency, so I just kind of fell off the wayside. But the rule was we did something during the week that was not going to a restaurant or sitting on the computer. So we went to like a pottery place. We went to the Museum of Broken Relationships. We would take turns each planning something for us to do that was kind of unique. It's been very hard during COVID because there's just nothing to do that's exciting. But we both love art. We love going to museums and things like that. And, we love to travel.
Are there any things or activities that you do with your friends that you don't do without Dave? Like it's more fulfilling, like he's not into it, or?
I think more it's just needing to have that connection with another girlfriend, where you can just talk about feelings. And not that Dave won't do that, but it's not necessarily an activity of some sort. He would much prefer that I go shopping with my girlfriends, so I will do that, But I think it's more just wanting to have that one-on-one time with girlfriends to talk about whatever I feel like talking about that maybe I don't want to tell Dave.
Got it. Do you have friends of the opposite sex?
I do.
Has he been fine with that?
He has been, and it drives me crazy because I wish he was a little more jealous, but he's just not really. I'm way more of the jealous type than he is. Like if he had a lot of close girlfriends, I would be like so upset, I think. And he just doesn't seem to mind.
Yeah, personalities are different.
Yeah.
And I mean, talk about your mom. My mom, she criticized me for, like, you're going up to Oregon to see your friend Mark, without Pete. Would you like that if he did it? I was just like, Mom, we're different. Number two, we communicate well. And if he tells me it doesn't bother me, I will believe him because I would tell him the same thing.
Right.
And it's just mutual respect. But for her, she was like,
Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my mom definitely also kind of questions if there's ever like a guy, well, what does Dave think about that? Because again, that was her experience versus my experience.
Right, right. And I think I feel similarly about it. But I think as long as there's good communication about it and also the mutual respect, like if you have guy friends, right? Dave knows he's number one.
Right.
Making them
For
feel
sure.
safe about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's the priority. And
Right.
and if he didn't feel good, you would
Right.
consider his feelings
Right.
first.
Of course.
That's the important part. Okay, let's talk about fighting.
Okay.
Well, you've been married a while, so do you fight better now? Like, are resolutions, is it shorter?
I think it's shorter, and I think I've also really worked on, I can give you an example. I've worked on myself in terms of how I react when maybe Dave does something that is upsetting to me. So an example is this week. Obviously, so many businesses are affected by COVID, as is mine. And so throughout this whole process, I've been like, okay, how am I going to pivot my business? What do I really want to focus on? Looking at it as an opportunity to do something maybe that I've been wanting to do for a long time and whatever. But I definitely have days, because I told my best friend, my best girlfriend yesterday, like, I'm watching clients go away one by one because they don't have a show or they don't have the money or, whatever it is. It then trickles down to me, right? I mean, I'm the first person to be let go. And she's like, well, are you excited that you have more free time, or are you freaking out that, you're seeing your business kind of not do great? And I said, well, both. And, certain days I'm so excited to get up and like work on projects and like do a, tutorial or whatever it is. And then there's other days where I am like fighting off depression. And I had one of those days for like 2 straight days. And I felt like Dave's response to me was kind of like, buck up, everybody, like people have it so much worse. Like, have you done your gratitudes? And like, I'm like, do you know what you can do with your gratitudes right now? Because that is not what I want to hear. And like, I could just feel myself getting like enraged. And like, he did like 3 things like that he said to me that I felt like were just not being very sensitive to my feelings. And so I started out being like passive aggressive. And then I finally just said, babe, I don't know if you've noticed this, but like I'm struggling today. Like I'm having a day. And I was like, so when you're telling me that like I need to essentially just buck up and be appreciative of what I have, I was like, it really feels like you're not regarding my feelings at all. I was like, all I need you to say is like, don't worry, it's going to be okay. Like it always is, or, whatever it is. And I was like, and then tomorrow I'll practice being grateful. And then he was just like, I'm so sorry. Like, I totally realized that I did that. And I was like, that is so much better than like screaming at each other. And like Dave and I have never really been like the screaming type. Like we argue, but we don't generally have like knockdown, drag out fights. Thank God.
Okay. And then what about the other way around? If he requests something of you, like, is it different, or do you kind of push back?
I mean, I'm sure that I get defensive, and then have to kind of give myself a check. Like, I definitely try to take any sort of criticism or note or whatever and, like, really think about what I've done. Because I think at the end of the day, like, we both are very conscious to be kind to one another, even when we're not happy with the other person and not, like, hitting below the belt or criticizing each other in front of friends or anything like that. I mean, I'm certainly not perfect, and, like, I have no idea how he would answer that question, but I hope that, at some point I can take a step back and be like, okay, like he has a point, and correct my whatever behavior is.
Is it different now because you guys got married in your 20s. Mm-hmm. So during that time, I think, the awareness around doing things like criticizing each other in front of other people and stuff like that. Do you think those things likely happened more towards the beginning and then you guys kind of got a groove with it, or was it always were your values pretty much in line from the beginning of the kindness and mutual respect?
Yeah, I mean, my college boyfriend and I argued over everything. I mean, he would say the sky is blue and I would say the sky is pink. I mean, like, it was just every single thing we argued over. And the fact was, we had nothing in common. We didn't want the same things. We didn't value the same things at all. And so I think with Dave's very easygoing, if you can probably guess. And so it doesn't take a lot to make him happy. I'm way more the one that's like the pain in the butt. So, I don't know that our fighting has necessarily changed. I would say maybe we've gotten better at just communicating our needs.
And is that through practice, or does therapy help with that?
It definitely does. I mean, my major was communication, so it's always been something that I've been very interested in. I mean, my relational communication class got me through my college breakup. It was so fascinating to me, and just the three phrases of I think, I feel, I want. It's something that I always try to keep in the back of my mind when I'm, communicating with Dave. And I don't really know that he necessarily reads a lot of self-help books or anything like that, but he's a very good communicator.
Okay. And he's always been a pretty good communicator?
I think he's gotten better. I definitely think he's gotten better too at there was a lot of animosity with his family and our wedding, just with who's planning and hurt feelings and all of that. And I mean, he said to me recently, he's like, gosh, I feel like I would have been so much better at handling that situation if we had gotten married now as opposed to when we were so young, because he just had no idea how to kind of play referee between his mom and me.
Did you guys ever have to have a talk about boundaries?
I think not necessarily with each other, but I would say more so with family. Like I'd mentioned during our wedding, it was a really stressful time because, traditionally the bride's mother is the one kind of doing the planning, and and Dave's mom had a really hard time with that. And so we definitely, as the years have gone on, we've had to kind of, we love them, and we definitely see them and whatever, but certainly, we definitely have a talk. But I think we're on the same page, thank God, because I think that being in a relationship with someone who doesn't put you first, who would put their parents above you has got to be very, very challenging. So I'm lucky in that way.
And in the beginning, well, because you said during the wedding that David mentioned he would handle it better now. Was there uncertainty during the wedding where he wasn't sure, do I need to make my mom happy, or...
He never really vocalized it, but I think for me, because I'm such a dominant personality and because I can take care of myself, for the most part, he just kind of takes the stance of he doesn't need to fight my battles. And that can drive me a little crazy because I still would like for him, even though he knows that I can take care of it. And sure, I know I can take care of it too. It's sometimes it would just be nice for him to come in and handle it. He's way more passive than I am. And I would say that's probably our biggest, if we have an issue, that would be it, because I'm definitely the more dominant person.
And you'd wish he would step in sometimes, especially if it's his family.
Right.
So in general, would you say that you get along with your mother-in-law?
Yes.
Okay. And it's just been disagreements of how to do the wedding and things like that.
Well, I think it's just that, you have to come to accept your in-laws for who they are because they're not going to change. I mean, at 70 years old, they are who they are. I'm sorry. Maybe there's one, someone in the entire, universe that has changed at 70, but I've yet to meet them. So I just sort of, Dave's one of 5. And so his brother's wife does not have a good relationship with the family. And it puts a lot of strain on everybody, even on us, because we want to see them, but we can't necessarily see them all together. And I know it's hard. And every family has its quirks. And they're not perfect and we're not perfect, but I just always try to come from the stance of they are Dave's family and he loves them. They are his parents and, he loves them and I love them and they are now my family and I don't have to like every single thing that they do or say. And I can step in and say my piece when I need to. But I also try to give some grace because they are his parents. And I know that I'm protective of my parents. And, I would want him to do the same for me.
So it sounds like there's respect. Mm-hmm. So your families aren't from here, right? Or you guys aren't?
No. So he was raised in the Bay Area and then near Philadelphia or Allentown area in Pennsylvania. And his family's still there for the most part. And then mine's in North Carolina.
Okay. How do you guys do family stuff, like the holidays and things like that?
It's so hard. So for years, we did both for Christmas. So we would fly to North Carolina, and our first couple years of marriage, like I'm fair. Being fair is like a huge value of mine. And so I wanted to make sure things were fair. And so we would split Christmas Day. So like one year we would leave on Christmas Day to be in New York City by that afternoon so we could spend Christmas night with his family. And then the next year we would go the day after Christmas. And then I realized his mom just didn't give a shit. Okay. So I was like, why am I doing this? So we now pretty much this year is obviously going to be different, but for the most part, we go to my family's till Christmas Day. And then the next morning we'll leave and go see his family and spend like 3 or 4 days.
Got it.
So it's really hard, but neither one of us wanted to give up time with our family. And I don't think he should have to. And with me being an only child, he's one of 5. So it's very different for his family. It's like if we're not there, they have other children and his parents are together, whereas mine are divorced and now my mom's on her own and I'm it. So if I don't go home, she's really alone. And so if I'm not willing to give that up, I don't think he should have to give it up either. So we just sacrifice, and Christmas is not like a fun vacation. It's trucking around to all these different places and seeing family.
Right. That's exactly how it is with our family as well. And I love that you say that because you guys are 16 years in and it's still a thing, that it's always, I think in the beginning, it can be a hard adjustment because we're
for sure.
Right. If the parents are being sensitive to, I remember my mom, the first year, she's like, you better come back for Christmas. I'm like, oh.
Right. Yeah.
But then I think everyone's getting more used to that things are different now. But we're similar. I'm similar to you in that things are fair and we try to. And my sister as well, and she has the kids.
Are both your families here? Or are they in different states?
Different states. He's East Coast, New Jersey.
It's so hard.
San Francisco, right. And then I imagine, for my sister who has kids, like you said, it's not fun. She's literally trekking around. Right. And our families are separated, so she's literally going four homes with the kids in the morning.
It's so hard. I know. I dream of having everyone to our house one day, but it just hasn't happened.
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see. We did stop going home for Thanksgiving and we host and now do a Friendsgiving, which is so fun. And it's also just too close to Christmas. It's so expensive.
So you said you have some friends that are still single.
I do. Yes.
Do they, are you giving them advice all the time?
It's hard because, I feel like my single friends sort of look at me and they're like, you literally got married before text messaging was a thing. So how could you possibly know what it's like to online date or, what is, ghosting or what? Please, we were totally ghosted. It was just via phone. They just stopped calling or whatever. That existed. It was just a different form. But the thing is, it's still the same. it's still aligning values and it's still, not being afraid to put yourself out there. So unless I'm directly asked for relationship advice, I teeter around, but I've definitely lost friends from being too honest. So I think that's probably my biggest change from my 20s to now is that I really realized that people don't always want to hear the hard truth. And in my 20s, I loved to give the hard truth. And so I stopped. I'm way more softer in my approach.
That's a great piece of advice. And that goes for personal growth in general. As a rule of thumb, unless someone asks you, you don't just say it. Or because I used to, after I started doing a lot of personal growth, because it felt good too. And I, in a way, I wanted to share it.
Of course.
I'm like, I feel so great. You could feel this great too. And it is so fucking annoying on the other side if you're not looking for that kind of improvement in your life or that change. So I've learned through the years, unless someone asks, I'm not going to say anything. But if you do ask, I am going to give my honest opinion. Yeah. And I think my friends know that about me. Mm-hmm. And because I value truth. Me
too.
I want to know what's real. I don't want to live a fake life.
I was always the girl that wanted to hear from the guy, I'm not interested. Like I didn't want to live in ignorant bliss.
Yeah, save time.
Yeah, I wanted to know that just tell me. You know?
Yeah, I think. I mean, those skills are also. It's why you're good in business too, right? Just this or this.
Right.
Let me know. Don't waste my time.
Right.
Okay, so for your single friends, do you see patterns with them? Do they choose unavailable people?
Yeah, I mean, I see a few things. One is, and this might, I know you wanted me to think about my best piece of relationship advice, but I feel like this kind of goes in with that. I just think that you have to be really careful what you're valuing in a relationship. And I've had a couple of friends that put all of their value in dating people that have money or dating people that look like a supermodel. And the problem with that is that when that is your only value, so many times you're going to be disappointed. That's like a really big thing for me because that's just not what I value. It's like, of course, who doesn't like nice things? I mean, I'm not saying like date someone who doesn't have a job. You know what I mean? But when you're just seeking those more superficial qualities, I just don't see it working out. And it hasn't worked out for my friends that's their only value. I mean, I would also say that, I mean, this is like such a cliche, and it's something that my therapist told me before I met Dave, which is, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And I think that, if you think that you're going to change a guy's mind because you sleep with him again or because, you're always available or whatever, it's just not true.
That's right. Yeah. You can't change someone.
Yeah.
Unless they want to change.
Right.
Yeah, with the superficial stuff, I mean, I usually say it's fine to have your preferences, but also don't forget to look at their character and core values first, actually.
Yeah.
The initial thing can attract you, like, oh my God, he's hot. However...
No, totally. And I mean, I've had friends that just completely ignore huge red flags because they have lots of money or because they look a certain way, and then it just doesn't work out. So, I mean, it's fine to want someone who makes a good living. I mean, that's an attractive quality, of course, but it can't be at the sacrifice of they dabble in drugs or they cheated on the last 3 partners that they've had or whatever it is that you're overlooking to kind of compensate for the fact that they're really rich.
Yeah, there's more. I mean, even if money is important to you, because that's valid, because it's important to me as well.
It's important to me too.
Yeah, it's valid. However, the nuances with that, almost like why do you want them to make a lot of money? Or what is their relationship to money, right? It's because they have that, just thinking more long term, because maybe if it's short term, like a fling or whatever, fine, go after those qualities. It's fine. But thinking long term, thinking in 10, 15, 20 years, what's going to be important to you?
Right.
Do you want someone to show up for you emotionally?
Right.
Or if you're crying your eyes out, do you want him to buy you another ring, or do you want him to actually empathize and console you?
Right.
Those things.
Right. Well, I mean, it's kind of like that saying. It's like, what is it? It's after $75,000 or $100,000 a year, you're not any happier with more. I mean, that's been proven over and over again. And I mean, trust me, I want more than that. I'm not saying that I don't, but I just think it can't be the only thing that you're looking for.
Right. Do you and Dave have similar taste when it comes to the way you travel and food and all that?
We joke that I've created a monster because when we first started dating, he thought he wanted to camp. And now he's like yes, our taste is very similar. Like he's even pickier than I am at this point. It's like crazy.
Okay, there's hope because Pete and I are different in that way. In that he's very simple. He doesn't require a lot. I would say my taste is a little bougier.
Yeah.
He does have great taste in food. Oh, thank God, because we both love to eat.
Right.
But yeah, sometimes with the way we travel, because I could travel both ways. I like culture and seeing authenticity. I could do, I could slum it for a week or two. But I can have fun at a 5-star resort too.
Right.
And if he's there, I think he'll enjoy it. But it's
Yeah.
usually not in his nature to be like, let's get this kind of hotel or.
Well, he would never book that. Like I'm the one that books those trips.
Got it.
And so if he knows what they cost, he up front is like, oh my God. But then once he's there, he's like, this is amazing. Like we actually just went on a trip and spent one night at Farmhouse Inn in Sonoma, which is very nice. And like, it's very expensive now because it's harvest. So it wasn't quite as expensive when we went, but we stayed one night and then we went on up to Mendocino and stayed at another place. And the rooms it just did not compare. And Dave was like kind of grumpy about it. And I just thought it was hilarious because I was just like, you would have never booked Farmhouse Inn based on price alone. And now and he was just, he was in heaven when we were there, which I loved. Like, I love that he has come to appreciate the finer things.
Oh, he's high maintenance
Yeah.
now.
Oh, yeah. He's totally high maintenance now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I hope. That's my hope.
That's her dream.
Yeah. But I think naturally,
Love it.
after you've been married for a while, you kind of turn it, like you rub off on each other.
Oh, for sure.
So I think, for P and I, me being probably more grounded and laid back, because he grounds me. I think if I didn't have him, I could easily go off and become crazy. But then also, I think I can influence him in different ways.
Right.
As you guys have.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And in terms of having a successful long-term marriage, what would you say are the important components to have?
I think you really need to like each other. I see it all the time where people think that their dating relationship, like once they get married, is somehow going to be different from their dating relationship. And then they get married and it doesn't change. The way that it is when you're dating is likely going to be the way that it is when you're married. And so Dave and I just really, really like each other still after 16 years. And so I think that it's so important to find things that you can do together. Even if it's just as simple as like what we've said, going out to eat and like geeking out over great food or whatever. It doesn't have to be some like crazy hobby, but making time to spend together so that you have ways to connect, because we don't have kids and we probably won't have kids. So, yeah, sure, we can talk about our cats at dinner, but like that's a little sad. so, we try to find other ways of, connecting, and whether it is taking a course or doing a yoga video in the morning together or whatever. Yep. I would say like respect is something that we've touched on quite a bit. And I think that it's just so important to treat each other with the respect that you would treat your best friend, because I think sometimes when you're married, it's just easy to kind of be mean or dismissive or critical or whatever. And so Dave always tells people that he tries to focus on my best qualities. Like he's in a goal group. And he's like, it's so easy to focus on someone's negative qualities, but he's like, that's not going to make you happy. But if you focus on the things that you love about that person, then things can only feel happier.
That's great. And it's so true because no one's perfect.
No.
And if you see these relationships on Instagram or whatever that just seem like, even if you're hanging out with them in person, it seems like things are always good. Mm-hmm. Nothing is perfect. And one person's not going to give you everything.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Right. So focusing on the positives, that's all internal work too, because easily, if you want to find bad stuff, you can absolutely find it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have a joke in our house: if you can't stand the criticism, get out of the kitchen. It's like, what's that tweet that came up during COVID that was, it was hilarious. It was like, my wife and I like to play this game called Why Are You Doing It That Way? And nobody wins. And it's so true. It's just like, and of course we do that stuff to each other, but then we kind of, rather than letting it escalate to a fight, we try to just be like, oh yeah, we're doing that thing, that cliche thing that you do when you're married. Isn't that so funny? And then just kind of move on.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself more type A than him?
Oh my God, for sure.
Okay.
And the only thing that Dave likes neat is his car, and he is obsessed with it. And I'm literally like, if you would just clean your bed, if you cared about your bedroom a third of the amount that you care about your stupid car, life would be so much better.
And because you're more type A and you have relatively a lot of control in other areas of your life, like your business, do you find yourself doing that in your relationship? Do it this way? For
sure. I mean, I know he would say that. I mean, I'm the one that takes care of our finances. I'm the one that plans our trips and travel. But he definitely takes care of me too. I mean, he fixes stuff around the house. And this is actually an amazing tip. Whoever cooks doesn't have to clean up. And he learned that from his dad. And it is literally the best thing ever because, yes, I do for the most part make dinner most nights that we eat at home. And then I don't even, it's just, I just can go and relax. And he goes in and cleans it all up.
Yeah, we've learned that recently, actually.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's such a simple thing, but it
is.
Feels really nice and fair.
Yes, I agree.
To sum everything up, for women who are dating right now and would like to find their life partner, how would you tell them to show up?
I would say don't be afraid to be yourself. I mean, that's the thing that Dave said that he was most attracted to, is that I had such a strong sense of self when he met me. I just knew who I was, and I haven't really changed since that day. And I think it is really easy to try to mold yourself into what you think somebody's going to want. But ultimately, I don't think that you're going to find your person by doing that, because then eventually it's all gonna, the
reality sets in.
Yeah, it's like you take your makeup off and, well, there you are. I mean, and I used to tell Dave when we first started dating, I wear jeans and a t-shirt most days. And so if you don't like me in that, then you're just not gonna like me. Because that's I feel like George Bush. It's fool me once. Well, you just can't fool me again. It's
Well, it's so true, though. I mean, you just have to think about how you want to show up long term. Because if you don't want to be wearing the makeup and fake lashes and doing all that 10 years down the road, probably don't do it all the time in the beginning.
Yes.
Then it turns exhausting, right?
Yeah.
So think about how you want to feel forever. Right?
The last piece of advice I would say is, if someone is showing interest in you, it's give it a chance. Because I definitely see women kind of running from guys that are genuinely interested in having relationships because their shoelaces were neon pink. Or, just ridiculous things that you're just look, guys, I changed Dave's entire wardrobe. I mean, he is not the same person he was when I met him. So, I'm not saying that, you want to get a guy and, change everything about him. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But I just think that there's certain things that I'm gosh, is that really going to matter in the long run? Because someone is they have hot pink laces. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's you've got to give people a chance to really get to know you, and you've got to be vulnerable. And I know that's so hard for people.
Well, thank you so much for coming today and sharing about this.
My pleasure.
It's awesome because you are a very successful, strong, independent woman. And again, we're always talking about business and things like that, but our personal lives are important, and a lot of times it sets
way more important than business.
Right, and it sets the tone of how you show up, day to day and in business in the world. So that's awesome. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much.